Hello and welcome to another video by Tiny Mushroom. In today's episode of Let's Talk Comics, we're going to be reviewing Wonder Woman, which we saw yesterday. The date was released and we're super excited to do a spoiler-free, really important spoiler-free review of this amazing movie.
Yeah, and to be honest, I've said before that my expectations weren't high.
Yeah.
I just want to talk a little bit about the lead up to it because obviously this movie had a lot banking on it.
Like Suicide Squad puts your expectations there. Like Batman and Superman was like, okay, we're setting a quite a low standard now. Suicide Squad was, let's go to the basement.
I didn't read that many reviews for it at
Yeah.
all, but I started to see some good, like not just like the odd good one or two which every film gets, but like generally quite positive things. So I went into this film like little bit higher expectations, and I was pleased.
That's awesome because normally when that happens, you just expect far too much, especially from a DC movie. So for your expectations to be met, that's a win-win.
I was expecting to like it, but I enjoyed it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say like I loved it, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. You know, of all of the DC expanded universe films, I didn't think, oh, Wonder Woman, that was really good. That's not the one that would be pitched as like, you know, the breakout one. But lo and behold, it is. You know, mind you, it's the best out of like a crop of 3 shit films and a good one. But
I have to say, I am more hyped after the film than you are. Like, I seriously like this film and can't wait to see this at least one more time. This was awesome. This is exactly what I wanted from this film.
Let's talk about just the character and portrayal of Wonder Woman. Obviously, she was for a lot of people, she was the highlight of Batman vs Superman. How do you feel that Gal Gadot carried this performance in this film?
This is a credit to Zack Snyder. Phenomenal casting. That's all I have to say about that. She did such a good job of having this. Basically, this isn't spoiler sake. This isn't the trailers. It's a World War I setting, and clearly Wonder Woman isn't from that era. So it's called kind of like a fish out of water sort of thing. And
it really is.
She played that naivety so well, and from that grew the character into what she became at the end of the film, which is seriously powerful. I think I'd say role model. What's really important for me in this film is that we had a main character that we could actually care about and understand exactly why she was doing these things. Where Superman, you sort of it doesn't matter what he does because he's Superman. He can do whatever he wants. Where she had much more of a conscience than Superman was.
One thing I want to sort of touch on about that is, you know, we see her evolution from like just a woman in Themyscira to a superhero. Like that portrayal, like, you know, that sort of naivety and that sort of like unawareness of, you know, the wider world and like the human realm, whatever, that's actually carried forward very well, and it's not ham-fisted.
I think it helps that it never tried to be this Justice League precursor, or it never tried to expand the DC universe. It was just a good Wonder Woman film, and it was an origin story that I didn't mind, because often you get like you sort of know the story and you're like, okay, let's get through this half an hour of this movie, and then we can get on to the good stuff that's not in the comic books most of the time. Whereas this was actually a really cool beginning to starting off Wonder Woman's life in Themyscira.
Another thing I just want to touch on that a little bit more is the feminism side of this thing. Now, obviously, I don't want to get into like massive detail on this because you can just completely avoid this stuff and still enjoy the film. If you know much about women's history and know about their rights back in like 1940, 1918, you know, beginning of the century, you sort of know that they weren't on equal footing, and that's just a given. The directors very, very carefully touched on that issue, but didn't go full on social justice warrior feminism on it. Blah blah blah. You know, they highlighted it.
It was clearly what it was like at the time. Was what you saw on screen. There was no bullshit about it.
Yeah,
there was clearly a class system between genders, and we got that straight away.
And it wasn't like Wonder Woman came in and just suddenly, you know, liberated women, or Wonder Woman's the reason we got the vote. Wonder Woman's the reason we're working. It's like, no, I'm just a woman. Like, I'm just an Amazonian woman who comes in and notices these odd little things.
Although she didn't affect those things, the journey she takes through the film, the battle that she takes on, and the gathering that she gets through doing those good deeds makes her such an incredible, obviously an unrealistic role model. But this sounds kind of weird, but I'm just so excited for young people to see this film and have a superhero to really look up to.
Yeah, considering that there is not really like a female superhero at all in the landscape at the moment. You know, like a main prominent one, not like Black Widow or Scarlet Witch, like, you know, who's side characters essentially, and blatant sex appeal as well for the most part.
Whereas in this film, I don't know if it's because there's a female director or whether this was the intent of DC to do this, but there was never any like lingering shots on someone who, from Amazonia, for example, who wasn't wearing many clothes. It was always they're wearing these clothes for a purpose, for like horse riding, for battling, whatever. And there was a really, I won't be too specific. There's a scene in the film that justifies that in a way.
Yep.
If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was never about that sex appeal. It was always about the functionality.
They're not always dressed in like ridiculous comic book costumes for the sake of appeal. They're dressed in it for a purpose.
Yeah, it was always functionality. And I think they genuinely felt empowered in those uniforms. I think that really reflects well on the younger female audience, who can then look up to not only Gal Gadot but Robin Wright and Connie Nielsen in these films.
Definitely.
So there was someone next to me, and they were sort of complaining about some of the things going on in the film. And clearly this is not the film for them. And so going back to the whole female icon thing, it just shows how different you can make superhero films. So I'm sure that person would have been perfectly happy with a Superman who had sort of a really boring personality but destroyed everything and there was big explosions on the film. But the fact that the female icon just went over his head was really interested me, and yet next to him is this like a little girl who would not have had the same experience whatsoever.
It's interesting that sort of, you know, regard, because obviously like every single film we've had from this genre so far has just been male dominated, and like there's not even the women representation is like completely non-existent in this medium. So I think that sort of plays in with like comic books in general. Like males overshadow females like ridiculously.
I think this. Well, I hope at least that this will go some way into forming the casting of future comic book films. But not only that this is looked on in years and years and years on as the moment that happens, and this is repeatedly watched as to this is how you make a comic book film that sort of aspires to this eventual gender neutrality.
That's the thing I sort of want to push there, is that it's not a good film because it stars a woman. It's not a good film because it preaches like, you know, feminism and social equality. It's a good film in its own right, which happens to have a woman in it, like a female superhero as its lead character. That makes me hope that we'll be getting other films like that. Maybe by the time we get to Captain Marvel, maybe they'll treat it similarly.
Hope so.
But they actually handled like that element of it really, really well. Gal Gadot's performance, like we pretty much agree, is like, you know, it's like perfect fit for this role. How do you think of some of the other cast members, such as like Chris Pine?
I was really excited to see him in this film. Like I knew what he did with Star Trek. I kind of knew his breakthrough roles before that. But I genuinely think this is one of his best performances, because it's for him to be Captain Kirk, the Captain Kirk, and then to not overtake this film in his acting, and to really play the second in command to the Wonder Woman, and never to overshadow her, but yet to have to resonate with people still and have such a lasting performance. I think it's such a good job by him. Yeah,
the funny thing is that he does have like a secondary role. Like obviously he is a support, but he's still very prominent in the plot, and his actions do genuinely.
He's still a kick-ass.
Yeah, and he genuinely moves the plot forward. It's not just a case of like Rick Flag in Suicide Squad where I'm just here and I'm surrounded by superheroes. You know, his actions do have genuine consequences, and he does get his own moments, you know, which I wouldn't say stand on par with Wonder Woman, because one of them's got superpowers, the other one hasn't. But he generally stands on his own 2 feet in this film, and
he's funny.
Yeah,
like there's some awkward interactions, and you know sometimes in Guardians there's a bit of a miss in the humor, because you know that they've just put that line in because it doesn't fit anywhere in the context, but they put that line in because they know it's a funny line. Whereas in this, it was always funny because of the situation. It was never forced humor.
Yeah, it takes a real kind of like clever writing, and also just that little like bit of restraint, I think, to get that kind of like awkward like interaction between between like man and woman, like, and that sort of like awkward dialogue.
Yeah,
like that's not peppered throughout the film, but it's used just enough. You know, it sort of preys on that little fish out of water aspect.
Yeah,
it's used just enough to make it funny, and
I
that's
think
fine.
If you had to compare it, it would be on a par with, use less so, but almost on a par with first Iron Man, where clearly there was an issue going on in the world and that need to be sorted by a superhero, but yet we've got these really light-hearted moments in there that again aren't too frequent, but really help with the pacing of the film.
One thing I'm really happy to see return is like DC's style of combat, because
you know Zack Snyder still did this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, you absolutely belated him.
Well,
But we
okay.
both did.
Okay, first of all, like, some of the Snyderisms are toned down a bit. There's very little. There's some, but not too much. There's not much rain in this film either.
There's not.
There's not much flair either. We haven't quite got out the Snyderisms yet. But one thing I'll say that the DC Expanded Universe films have done consistently better than the MCU films is hand-to-hand combat fighting. Because, just going back to like, Batman and Superman, when Batman is getting thrown at a wall by the Superman, the sound effects and the visual design of it, you genuinely feel he's been thrown through a brick wall.
When Batman infiltrates that building, when Alfred's helping him get inside, just that he had to take out 10 people. That was a really cool moment as well.
You fully feel like you fully feel that these are people, and you feel the weight of the combat in it as well. It gets a little bit worse when it's entire buildings are getting destroyed, but that's for Man of Steel, and we don't talk about that one ever. But the audio does like the hand-to-hand combat and like the weight of impact as well is great. That's the thing that's carried over as well, because obviously we're in a war setting right now, and I'm not going to go into much detail about what happens in here, but let's just say the combat's very realistic. You know, when someone gets hurt or punched or shot, you really do feel it. It's got that really nice, satisfying crunch behind it. So it actually gives weight to the combat rather than just I'm a superhero and I'm really strong. Boof.
For sure. And not only with Wonder Woman as well, because clearly she's got a Chris Pine to go with her, and he's a bit of a badass as well. And the way that he goes about it, you can still, although it's not super, you can still feel the weight behind his punches that he throws.
Definitely, he throws a few good slugs.
Yeah,
he throws a few good ones, and
he takes a few good ones as well.
Exactly, not everyone just goes then collapses. Like there's that moment where they try and like fight back, but then just completely fall down.
They've got no blood in their head, and they go.
Yeah, exactly. Or where they just double take for a second, and then they get another, like that. That's great, and that's another good thing I'm carried forward. Shall we talk about some little hints of symbolism in this film?
Yeah, I really like the sheer difference, because it's not spoilers that Wonder Woman takes place initially in Themyscira, and then she moves into the World War One battle zone. And the sheer difference in these two places is incredible, and is a massive clue as to what she's going through, going from this amazing. I won't describe the place, but this amazing environment of Themyscira to the just absolutely horrid, nightmarish location of the World War One battle zone.
It's interesting seeing her, development from, where she is to where she ends the film, because obviously war is just hell incarnate, and this is her first instance of properly seeing like a war. Well, it's still new to everybody else as well. That's one thing they hammer home, that this is a war to end absolutely all wars. So it's really interesting seeing the perspective of somebody who's new to this kind of warfare. It's another thing I sort of touch on as well, like just going back to the combat for a second, is that Wonder Woman doesn't use like traditional weapons, because she does tend to stick to like the lasso of truth.
And the gauntlets.
The gauntlets, and you'd think, I really questioned how is that going to like be used effectively in this film, but surprisingly enough, they actually managed to carry it through.
Yeah, the gear is amazing, and the way they go about using it in different combat techniques. Where they've been in Themyscira, where we do see some really cool varied combat on various means of transport, and also in the World War One setting where she just goes full badass.
Exactly, yeah. Every weapon is used for like all of her the tool. Like she only has a few things to use, but they're all used like to maximum efficiency as well. Like the lasso isn't just used for the typical "you're going to tell the truth." Now it's used in combat. The shield isn't just used for blocking hits; it's used for other things as well. So it's nice seeing that. What combat could originally be originally quite murky, especially when she's just like, she's fighting against like, people with guns and Tommy guns and machine guns. It's quite seeing how she actually manages to go through with that, and you believe like there's certain points of the film where she feels more like just a force of nature rather than a person, and you feel that power behind her. You feel like she's the most powerful person on the planet, more so than I ever felt Superman was, because it's quite grounded and it's quite realistic. And
but then to counteract that, there are points where she's incredibly vulnerable, not only emotionally but in the context of battle, where you genuinely think if a bullet went through her, this would be the end of the film.
Yeah, they do make a point about that as well. Like she's not invincible, but it's not so about her innate powers. It's more about like her training. It's more about how she handles herself in battle. Like
for sure,
she's only this good because she is specifically battle hardened for this point, rather than just she's super whatever.
Yeah, like Superman. Yeah, super.
Yeah,
Can't get hurt.
yeah, can't get hurt. Never had any training for it. Just go off. It's more so the Batman approach I'd like to think of it as. Definitely that kind.
So it's important to say that although we praise this film to the hills and back, it's not perfect. There are instances in this film where you sort of groan a little bit. There's very much comic book movie tropes, let's say, in this. And it does make you sigh a little bit, but because of the things that we talked about, because of the leading actors, Gal Gadot's portrayal of Wonder Woman, because we care about Wonder Woman in such a huge way, and because she's this immense force of freedom for the people fighting World War One, those things don't matter. And at the end of the day, it's just a fantastic action film. And not only that, luckily for us, it's a fantastic superhero film.
Considering, like I've already said, that I went into this film, like, if it was okay, I'd accept it. I would probably not as pleased as you, but I'm happy on this a lot more like a grander scale. Like, this is obviously a good film. Yeah, they've got the traditional comic tropes, and sometimes the pace can be a little bit offset, and there are a couple groan-worthy moments, but to be honest, when you look at like these films, when you follow them as much as like, the general public does, you're going to pick up these trends anyway.
Yeah.
But as far as like not just a DC Extended Universe film goes, as far as a Wonder Woman film goes, but like the weight that this film had to carry onto it and for it to pull it off to this level.
I think that we've underestimated other people's expectations of this, because in a previous video we said that this was the film to save the DC universe potentially. How do you carry that on an origin story? Yet it did.
Yeah, great film. Definitely go see it. Definitely go see it because it's genuinely different. It's genuinely got enough differences, I think, to warrant that £10 or whatever to go see it.
It's not a different subgenre. It's still a superhero film. It's still an action film. Yeah, it's got such a fantastic take on it.
Definitely worth seeing. Right, that's some of our thoughts, I think. So thanks very much for watching this video, and as always, we always like to hear what you guys have to say about like any of our topics. So how was this film to you? Did it fulfill any expectations, or how do you think it's going to fit into the wider landscape of just not the DC films or women in films, but just the comic book landscape in general? Let us know if you've got any thoughts about that. And if you've enjoyed this video, then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We always love hearing things from you. And don't forget to check out the rest of our playlist. We've got an ongoing playlist of Let's Talk Comic Books, where we talk about comic books and comic-related media. We've got another one called Let's Talk Video Games, where we discuss new video games, upcoming releases, and also just franchises in general. And we've got our classic gaming set list, where me and Zach play a game for the first time, generally a classic game, and just give our first thoughts on it after the first couple of hours or so. Thanks once again for watching this, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.